up there. Myself and Potsy will be with you for a little while longer. I did want to ask you about Arsenal as well. We've mentioned Nico Williams. Your name has been linked to him in terms of, and the reports are all sort of like, if Arsenal go for a winger, if Arsenal go for an attacker, he's top of the list. But is that? I'm also seeing reports of Arsenal being sort of speaking about like Jorginho and Trossard kind of signing, slightly older, slightly more experienced players to just bolster the strength of the squad. Like, what are you hearing around Arsenal? And then, barring Calafiori, which just looks like Bologna have got to sign a replacement, you'll get him. Outside of that deal, what else is credible right now from an Arsenal perspective? Nico Williams. There's obviously talk about Marino from Real Sociedad. What's the latest as far as you're aware?
Yeah, well, at the moment, there's a lot of rumours of Arsenal trying to sort out three departments: the goalkeeping department, the centre back position, and the left back position, which will be Calafiori, and midfield. And I think with midfield, Arsenal fans are hoping to see a big name. So when we get linked with Mikel Merino, it doesn't really fill us with a hell of a lot of confidence. Having said that, I do quite like the player. From what I've seen, what I hear good things. I hear that he's a very reliable player, very consistent player. He's got a lot of attributes that I think would suit us. He's definitely more of an 8, which I think we need, other than Declan Rice. He's really the only one we've got, Declan Rice, in that position. So we haven't really got another midfielder that can do what he can do. I think Granit Xhaka has kind of been, some people say missed, some people say haven't been replaced. I think when we look at that, he can come in and be that guy that we potentially missed in Granit Xhaka. So I see some attributes similar there. I think with the Calafiori deal, I think they want closer to 50. We want closer to 40. I think that will get done. It's just a matter of time. The goalkeeping situation is an interesting one, Sel, because David Raya is going to be the number one. Aaron Ramsdale is going to look to be sold. But we don't know how much we're going to get for Aaron Ramsdale and what clubs are going to come in for him. Now, there are two goalkeepers that we are looking at. Tommy Setford is being signed from Ajax, we believe, for around about £1 million. He's going to come in as an 18-year-old as the third choice goalkeeper, we believe. And then there is rumours that we're going to get a second choice goalkeeper. And the one that we are looking at is Juan Garcia over at Espanyol. So it looks like Arteta's reverting back to not having two number one goalkeepers. He's going to go for Raya as the one. And then obviously the backup goalkeeper there. And Setford will come in as the homegrown player that will just be ticked off as a Champions League homegrown player and sit and learn and develop as an 18-year-old. So that'll be the goalkeeping department. Calafiori, I don't believe there'll be anyone else that we add to that defensive department. Mikel Merino is the one that we're highly rated to get and probably favourites to get. But after that, Terry, we're linked with players. And obviously it's Eze, Pedro Neto, linked with Kimmich, linked again with Bruno Guimaraes yesterday, links with Nico Williams, the Athletic reporting that Arteta would have him as the number one if he is willing to come to Arsenal, but there are rumours he wants Barcelona. £49 million release clause. It wouldn't be a problem money-wise to come to Arsenal, but he's going to have to want to come to Arsenal. And it looks like he's got his heart set and staying in Spain and going to Barcelona. The striker situation has gone very quiet. It doesn't look like we're interested in Osimhen anymore. It doesn't look like we want Ivan Toney. It doesn't look like we're in for a Dovbyk or a Boniface or somebody like that. And Victor Gyökeres was the one that we were linked closely with, but that's kind of gone quiet now as well. So I do kind of have a little bit of a back of my mind worry that we might not get a centre forward this summer. I really believe that could be a possibility, and Arsenal fans might not want to hear that, but it actually could be that we do not get a striker and we go for a wide player. Now, whether that wide player is going to be a Nico Williams or an Eze or Pedro Neto, I still don't know. We're linked with quite a lot of them. But Arsenal, I think, will not have the summer unless it's a shock that we go, wow, that's the Declan Rice coming in. I don't think we'll have that. I think we're probably going to have more of a similar window to the summer we had previously, where we signed Gabriel Jesus and Zinchenko, where most of our rivals went, oh, they're quite good signings, but didn't go, wow, Arsenal are now ready for the title. I think we're going to kind of get that, if I'm honest with you. And listen, LB's kind of right in what he said earlier about Arsenal don't need a revolution and need like 7 or 8 top players. But I kind of agree and disagree. I kind of feel like we can't stand still here. We do need to look at what might happen in the worst case scenario, that we don't have a striker again. Saka gets an injury. Saliba gets an injury. Who's to cover for Declan Rice? If these players were to get knocks, at the moment, we haven't got players to cover for them. So if we're going to sell Eddie Nketiah, we need to upgrade on him. Reece Nelson needs upgrading on. If Smith Rowe's going to go, we can't just not buy anybody there. We're going to need to get somebody that is the equivalent of Smith Rowe. If Saliba was to get a knock, what do? Does Ben White or Tomiyasu or Timber come in? Or do we need a right-sided centre-back as well as Calafiori? So I think there's definitely quite a lot of potential for Arsenal there. We've got to decide what we do with Declan Rice, and I don't mean what we do with his future. I mean where he plays, 6 or an 8. Where is he going to be? I think Arteta wants him to be in the 8. So does that mean we have to go and get a Kimmich or a Bruno to come and play in the 6, or do we play him in the 6 and then go and buy an 8? And at the moment, Mikel Merino is going to be that guy. So I believe personally that we've got a good opportunity for us to go and get some players in. But I don't think we're going to see any £105 million Declan Rices. But listen, this is Arsenal. They keep their cards close to their chest. We could see for overnight, we go and buy Leroy Sané. And everyone's like, whoa, I didn't see that coming. Or something mad like that. So I don't know. I think we have to watch this space with this one. At the moment, it's looking pretty cute. But, you know, the Euros has just finished, the Copa America's just finished. I expect it to be busy in the coming days and weeks.
Well, this is why there's so many strands to this that I'm not going to discount some of the Arsenal fans that think you're going to sign no one of any real note. And I've seen those stories all summer. It's all PR. We're signing no one. We're going back to being tight. There is a chance you sign nobody. Cool. I also think it's also sometimes you've got to hold your nerve in the transfer window. So you look at the Nico Williams situation. I've already seen the Barca fans in the comments say, but he wants Barca. But there's very strong reports from Spain that Barca don't have the money to complete the deal. So if you're Arsenal, you might be sitting there going, right, we could go and get Pedro Neto today, but we'd prefer Nico Williams. Nico Williams prefers Barca, but is open to us. But if Barca don't get the money up and can't buy him, that might clear the pathway. So you don't want to... You want to get players in for pre-season. You want to sign them as early as possible. But if you look at Nico Williams and you believe he is exponentially a better player that will make Arsenal better today, tomorrow, next week, next year, next 5 years, you might have to hold your nerve and see how that situation transpires as well. And I think that very similar. Man United are doing that with Lenny Euro. He's our priority. We're working on him. But we've got some other deals kind of lined up. But we're not triggering De Ligt just yet, because if we trigger the De Ligt deal, and then Lenny Euro says, actually, I'm up for joining. We've just screwed up the opportunity of signing a player that's being referred to as the Mbappe of French defending for his age type thing. So I do sort of look at these scenarios and think to myself, fans have got to be patient because clubs have got to be patient. And I got where LB was coming from. I agree that they need to strengthen their squad, but I still think there's a few areas on the pitch that if you sign the right individuals, you can improve the first 11. Which would in turn improve your squad, you know? And I think that having more competence... Again, I don't necessarily think you need an out-and-out number 9. I think you need someone but the premise is still correct, that someone that influences those games that are going to end in a draw and you win. That person who influences the game where it's hard to break down an opponent and you score a goal. Now, if that's a number 9, great. But if it's a new inside forward... I mean, we saw Nico... A lot of people rave about Nico Williams. We saw him do it at the Euros. There's a reason that Barcelona and other big clubs want him, because he does change games. He has great skill, great pace, can cross, can score goals. And if you add that to your mix, that could be a game changer in itself. It doesn't necessarily have to be the out-and-out number 9 that's doing that, as long as somebody in the attack is adding those extra goals. And, you know, and it isn't just taking goals away from somebody else. It's those moments where this game's tight, it's 0-0, or you're away, I don't know, you're away in Paris Saint-Germain, the Champions League, it's tight and it's hard, and they get that one half opportunity and they make it work and they make it count and they score. And I think someone like Nico Williams could be that. So yeah, I don't think right now Arsenal fans should panic, although I do get it. I suppose there'd be less panic if Calafiori was already done and over the line. If it was done, it was in the back.
I think sometimes there's the worry that the negotiation skills of Edu and Arteta are not as quick as what Arsenal fans would like. I understand that, and I've been frustrated like Arsenal fans in the past, and it's not just Arteta and Edu. This goes back quite a long way into the Wenger days and before Arsene Wenger. So I definitely agree with that. But what I will say is that although I'm frustrated that Arsenal haven't been able to get a couple of players in the door, tell me other teams that are. Like, if Liverpool was signing 5 by now and Manchester City had their team settled with 4 players coming in and you guys were going and buying 5 or 6, I might sit there and go, what are we doing then, guys? But this has been a very slow window. I mean, there is absolutely nothing to talk about, is there, at the moment?
And Man United are more active. And we've only got one over the line. It looks like in the next week or so we might have... And what was said all along is Man United want to have at least 2 players in before the sort of tour starts. But that starts in like a week. And excuse me, quite a few of the players that I'm still so exhausted after my journey yesterday. so many of the players that we're actually linked to are still not, are not even going to be back for the start of the tour because their nations went quite deep into
Yeah.
we want Ugarte. He got to the essentially he played the same man. I know they went out in the semis, but they played the third place playoff. So he's going to have a few weeks off as an example. The Dutch got to the semi-final. So even if it's De Ligt and Xerxes, they're not going to be with us in a week's time. Man United have probably been more active. City, Chelsea have signed a couple of players, yes, and then a lot of youngsters. Outside of that, this is why sometimes you've got to look at the wider picture. Madrid have got Mbappe, but that was done months ago. Same as City with Salvio months ago.
Yeah.
Nobody else has signed anybody. So
No.
I don't think it's necessarily, you've got the Onana's now been done. So yeah, there's not like a lot of business has gone on. I'm hopeful that in the next few weeks, it kind of, you start to see all the negotiations turn into players. If Man United land Yeni Euro and Ugarte, you would then expect, Madrid then have got to find another centre back. PSG might need to find a midfielder. You start to see more and more sort of transfers going on. I also think what's slowing things down is getting the right price for players we're all selling. Like, we're open to selling a lot of our players, but the bids ain't been right yet.
Mm-hmm.
The same as yourselves. You guys, it's obvious you're open to Smith Rowe going. You just want the right amount of money for him. You want Nketiah gone. If you actually get the right bids in for Nketiah, the right bids in for Smith Rowe, suddenly there's an extra 70, 80 million pound. I'm sure you're going to go and spend that on a player, if that makes sense. So,
absolutely.
And everyone has to balance their books. And this is the thing that annoys me about like the negative Nellies. They wax lyrical about the net spend that Man City have had. Well, they only have good net spend because they sold. But yet you're moaning that Arsenal are not buying before they sell, but yet you've praised other clubs for selling before. So do you know what I mean? I think you're allowed to be angry at your own club. You're allowed to be negative, but you've got to keep it consistent. You've got to keep it consistent, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. And listen, we're going to have some outgoings, I think, at Arsenal in the coming days. Fulham are really interested in Smith Rowe, and they're saying they could go up to as much as £40 million to offer or bid for Emil Smith Rowe. Eddie Nketiah is attracting interest from Marseille, and there's some Premier League clubs that are looking to go in for him. Reece Nelson is being linked with Palace and West Ham. Obviously, Kieran Tierney and Ramsdale, we expect to leave the club, so I expect that we'll be looking at that. The Saudi Arabian rumour with Partey has got a little bit quiet. I don't know if that's going to come back, but they're the sort of outgoings I expect to happen at Arsenal, and that'll bring in, between 100 and 130 million pounds, which isn't a lot when you think of it, that we've actually sold quite a lot there, but we're happy to get rid of these players and move on. That 100 that we get from it, added to the budget of 200 million, which I'm being told we've got, you've got 300 million pounds to spend there in the summer. So you're going to have to, if you sell Eddie, replace him. You're going to have to, if you sell Nelson, replace him, likewise Smith Rowe. We're going to have to get a goalkeeper in, which I mentioned earlier. It looks like Calafiori is that guy that we're going to have. And, you say Arsenal actually do need to try and strengthen their first 11. I totally agree with that. And I think that we need to sort out what's happening at left back. We need to understand who our left 8 is and whether we need to buy a 6 or an 8 that goes into that first team with Rice and Odegaard. And we need a centre forward that's an upgrade on Havertz and Jesus. So there's 3 positions there that we clearly need that have to come in. And I think those 3 positions, they do need to be looked at and you to actually go, whoa, do you know what? They're 3 excellent signings. And I think signings like a Bruno Guimaraes or a De Jong or Joshua Kimmich, Leroy Sané, those type of signings, I think would actually turn heads and go, God, I didn't see that one coming. Arsenal was serious this season. We need to be realistic, Tel. Do you know what I mean? We're not going to be looking at Alexander Isak coming to Arsenal. It might be that we want Nico Williams, but if his heart is set on Barcelona,
this is just it. I get where LB was coming from earlier in City situation. Just pay the 100 million for Bruno and get it done. I don't agree with the notion, though. I think clubs should be frugal. I think they have to be. There's no point wasting 20 million pound because you don't know when you might need that 20 million. I mean, from a City point of view, you don't know when you might need it for legal fees, but you don't know when you'll need that money in the grand scheme of things. You have to be sensible and you have to be smart and not act on emotion. And I think that